You know, the other day I was talking to a high-level marathoner. She's a 3:08 marathoner. She's really hoping to break 3 this fall. That 3:08 is not truly indicative of what her potential is. And we were talking about some of the things that could really change her physiology to get her to be able to run a sub-3 marathon. One of the ideas I had was doing a special mileage block. Now, this is something that I've been doing for most of my life because I ran cross country in college, and this is one of the things that we do before the season. But a mileage block is like base training. It basically is base training, but the goal is hitting a new mileage record, whether that's for the week or for the month. And I've found that as adults, one of the things that we love to do is train for races. Of course, it makes sense, right? We're runners, we love races. But if we never take any time to focus on the things in our training that are going to drive our physiology forward, then we may start seeing our race time start to plateau. So let's talk a little bit more about what a mileage block is, how to go about doing it, and some mistakes to avoid. First, let me just explain what the college cross-country team does every summer. Now, track will generally end in May, maybe very early June for most college athletes, and cross-country doesn't begin until the very end of August. So for about 2 months, college cross-country runners focus on overall weekly mileage. They try to get up and boost their mileage pretty high. They focus on almost entirely aerobic training. They do a consistent long run every week, and the goal is to build an enormous aerobic base that is going to carry you through the cross-country season and all those hard workouts that are done. Now, we can do the same thing. We don't have to leave this special training strategy just for those college runners, because there's a lot to love about what this special base training block does for us. So let's talk about some of those rules that we should follow when we're doing a mileage block. So rule number 1, no racing. We are not going to be focusing on racing, because when you focus on racing, you inject a lot of intensity into your training, and that has to come from somewhere, and it usually detracts from the goals of building your volume. So we're not going to do any racing. We're also not going to do any workouts. Now, maybe the second half of your mileage block, you can start doing an easy workout during the week. It should be, 6 by 30 seconds uphill. Maybe it's 3 by a mile at your half marathon race pace. We're not talking about really hard workouts. We're talking about workouts that are going to be half marathon paced for relatively low volume, or like those 30-second hill reps, short, snappy, power and speed-oriented reps. We want to work on our aerobic fitness, or we want to work on our neuromuscular fitness. We want to stay away from the middle zone, that zone of VO2 max that's really going to start taking away from our goal of building mileage. Okay, rule number 2 when we're doing a special mileage block is that while we're not really going to do workouts, we might do an easy workout during the second half of this block. We are still going to be doing strides 2 to 3 times a week. Now, strides are just accelerations where you get up to, let's say, about 800 to mile race pace. So it's a controlled sprint. It's not a maximum effort, full speed sprint, but we do want to play with speed. We want to touch speed. We want to experience speed. We just don't want to do it in a way that's incredibly difficult. We don't want to feel sore from these sessions of strides. So let's do 4, maybe 6 strides 2 to 3 times a week. You can also take your shoes off and do these on, a synthetic turf field or a nice grass field where there's nothing underfoot to help build some extra foot strength and lower leg strength, as well as reinforcing good form. One of the reasons why we want to continue doing strides and never really get too far away from doing anything super fast is because we still want to maintain our base of speed. Right now we're talking about building a big base of aerobic fitness. We also want to have a base of speed. One of the things I talk about a lot for the marathoners in my audience is let's take a season away from the marathon. Let's focus on some track meets, the 5K, some middle distance races, because we need some of that VO2 max, that power oriented type of training to really help drive our fitness to new levels. The same thing is true on the other side of the spectrum, where sometimes we just need a mileage block. We need a block where Instead of being constrained by races and hard workouts, we can focus on extra volume, extra aerobic training without those constraints. And it can help us reach higher levels of mileage than we've ever gone before. But don't skip your strides. They're always important. By the way, how cool is this where I am right now? This is just amazing. Standing on a boulder next to a mountain, looking into a valley, and it is just crazy. It's beautiful here. I have upgraded my daily greens mix. You have to try how good Previnex's Gut and Green Superfoods mix is. It tastes way better than my last greens mix, and I'm so happy to have made the switch. Now, not just because it tastes better, but because it has twice the fiber, it has clinically proven ingredients that help with digestion and gut health, and it actually has fewer ingredients. And this is actually a good thing. My last greens mix had dozens and dozens of greens in it, but in such tiny quantities that you're not getting much out of it. I'd rather focus on quality over quantity. And like everything from Previnex, they have clinically studied ingredients that are going to help with your GI system, your digestion. It's going to reduce inflammation and really help with your gut health. So thank you, Previnex, for using clinically verified ingredients. You got to check out their amazing apple flavor on Previnex.com. And if you want 20% off, use code JASONGREENS. And by the way, for every order, Previnex donates a bottle of multivitamins to kids in need. So thank you, Previnex. Okay, rule number 3 for our mileage block. If you can, try to incorporate a lot of cross training. Because the goal is volume, not necessarily mileage, but volume. You of course want to test yourself with actual running mileage. Running mileage is more specific to our sport. It's going to help you not only build that aerobic fitness, but also fine tune your mechanics and really help with neuromuscular coordination. But we can get additional aerobic fitness if we are also adding in aerobic cross training like cycling, pool running, the elliptical. These are all really great options for us, and they help make sure that even if you are a bit limited with regard to your ability to run mileage, maybe you're injury prone, maybe you just can't get out for a lot of running, but you might have an exercise bike at home that you can use, you can still get in essentially the major goals of one of these mileage blocks, which is that aerobic training and increasing your volume. So don't skimp on cross training. I know runners don't like it, but if you can add in 2, 3, 4 hours of cross training per week, you are basically going to add in a whole extra week of aerobic cross training over the course of this 8 to 10 week block. And that's going to make a material difference on your overall fitness level. The last thing I should add is that if you can, try to get on some trails, just like I'm on right now. Actually, I had to stop and hike, even though my heart rate is still in zone 2, just as I am walking up this incredibly steep trail right here. I'm just surrounded by huge kind of mountains on either side. I'm in like an interesting valley. But trail running can challenge you a little bit more, help you build a little bit more coordination and balance and proprioception, while at the same time giving you that strong aerobic stimulus. And because you're not in a performance phase of training, in other words, you're not really worried about your actual mile splits, exactly how fast you're going, you can afford to maybe run a little bit slower on trails because the terrain is very technical, or like me, you might be going up some gnarly hills. So trail running can be really fantastic during this block because it's not exactly performance oriented, but it can give you a lot of the benefits that you want in this phase of training. One of the mistakes I used to make as a younger runner was that I really just chased weekly mileage numbers, and it's a mistake. It can really make you make mistakes with your training, and it really helps training errors be a lot easier to make because you're chasing an arbitrary number. So I don't want you to think after watching this video that I'm encouraging you to chase a weekly mileage number that you might not be ready for. In fact, one of the things that you might want to do is actually focus more on your monthly mileage numbers, because this forces you to think more long-term and it helps you not make short-term training errors. So when in doubt, focus a little bit more on monthly mileage, and you're probably going to end up making fewer training errors. You're going to stay healthier, and you're going to have that long-term perspective, which is really valuable in the sport of running. You know, in the last 15 years of coaching runners, I found one of the most valuable things to do is to plan out the year of training and the year of goals. If you know what you're training for, and you're training for appropriate things. In other words, you're not just training for 3 marathons every year. Maybe you're including a special mileage block. Maybe you're including that more VO2 max oriented 5K middle distance block in there, as well as some marathon training too. If you could do these things, you are going to be a successful runner, because you are prioritizing the right things in your training. You are working on different types of physiological stimuli at different points of the year. And it's through this ongoing process that you're going to become a much better runner.